What's up, guys? Today's topic should kind of accompany my last topic about tips and just work in general. I am going to attempt to express myself on this pertaining to the way that I personally look at the meaning of work and what it does to a person. So my fondest hope is that I can present it in a way that just makes sense. Definitely not looking for anyone to agree, honestly, but I would like to be able to express why it is impactful in the manner that it's been impactful for me. So let me just dive right into it. As someone who is uneducated and went straight into the workforce, and my choices were super limited as a result, say I could only aspire to have an entry level job kind of skill. I remember telling myself that I can expect for my life to become unnecessarily difficult. By unnecessarily difficult, I mean that for someone like me, someone who did her work in school, studied, had almost perfect attendance during her school career and stuff, I should be aspiring for something greater. But I didn't. Therefore, because of that decision, I can expect for my life to become complicated in the financial sector. And socially, the individuals I would be presented to would belong to a class of people, a type of people who would be susceptible to challenges of their own, and therefore I can expect for my life to be a life of lots of endurance, pretty much, enduring hardship. Now, by me saying that I would be meeting people who are in the struggling end of society doesn't mean that I was going to be surrounded by individuals who are inherently inferior. It just meant that low income equates to low income person problems. We all know what those look like, feel like, sound like, so I'm not really going to take the time to enumerate them. But I was not afraid of that type of thing because I said to myself, well, I was born and raised into a degree of low income, so why would I be intimidated to start off in a situation like that? I think that the most responsible thing and sensitive thing to do would be to start off being forced by my very origins. I remember being in school, especially high school, and being told by my teachers, or actually the teachers would tell everybody to make sure that you go to college, go into a good college, and at the very least, if you don't go to a good college, at least have a college degree, because it'll be so much better to get you into better positions, blah, blah, blah. We all know how that conversation goes. But I was telling myself, why would I want that though? Like, what is my ultimate goal with wanting to be from that class of society? Especially if it's a class of society I just don't belong in. I don't belong to. It's not where I was raised, it's not what I was raised for. Therefore, I was struggling to identify myself as wanting to be part of like the high value people. What does it mean to be a high value person? And what are the consequences associated with being a high value person? That didn't make sense to me. And if something is never clear to me, no matter how beneficial it may look like on paper, I am never going to take part in it. That's why you guys don't really hear stories from me about me describing myself as a victim of decisions like that. The one time I remember expressing myself remotely resembling being a victim was the matter about that one time that I had to pay rent, but I was only like, it was like $7 under the amount that I needed to have sitting in my bank account so that the bank would withdraw that money for my apartment place, whatever it was. I ended up being charged the $60 for it not processing because it was either $60 or 50, I forget. But basically, I had to pay because there were not enough funds, but I ended up depositing the couple of dollars that I needed to complete rent, but I deposited it a day too late. By the time that I deposited, that request for deposit had already happened, or rather, request for withdrawal had happened when my account didn't have enough money, and therefore I got hit with a fee. And then I said, fees like this are designed to keep people who don't have money broke, because now you're going to penalize me for just a simple scheduling conflict. Like, I didn't have those $7 yesterday, but I have them today, and you just so happen to have processed that, I guess, overnight, and I just missed my window. So that was the incredibly scummy part. Going back to what I intend overall with this topic, I want you to understand my beginnings so that you can understand what I'm getting ready to say now. I wish that everybody, regardless of what social status you were born into, what social status you aspire for, or what social status you're currently inhabiting, there is something that I wish everybody would just go through, and that is you have to be comfortable with the idea of serving. Become an individual of service. Learn to serve people of all ages, sizes, shapes, races, languages, economic situations, all of that, handicaps, whatever it is, you need to learn to be a good server. Now, we happen to have a job out there called server, which is what my last video happened to be about, and the whole tipping element. With that said, a job like that, you will be treated poorly. You have to get comfortable with the idea of providing a service with the same attitude, regardless of how you are treated. It sucks, I know, but that is the kind of experience that I believe forges your character. And I think that when I was in school, a lot of teachers had the good intention of telling us, hey, make sure that you follow this path so that you don't have to experience this hardship and disrespect and all that. It's like we all should come from the very bottom so that we can grow into and especially appreciate any greatness that may follow. But I feel like if you are hurried through school to immediately land that white collar job, but you never have experience of being a blue collar job, I think that a lot of the attitudinal problems that we see on people is because they skipped that season in their lives that would have forced their character to be able to handle and earn that higher, greater position. So, what I'm trying to say with this is that when you get comfortable with the idea of serving, that is when you can expect for your life to feel like it has meaning. Like whatever job you're doing is fulfilling and satisfying. Because the whole point of learning to be a good server as a person is no matter what you encounter, what you're treated with, what you're given, what you're not given, you're going to be okay because you developed that character trait. But for these people who immediately resent stuff like not getting tips, whether you are a server at a restaurant or a driver, like that one $5 guy in the big house he delivered to, whatever, all that stuff, to me, that looks like people who are having jobs that are serving individuals, but you are not embracing that humiliating aspect of being a server. Someone like me, I had a major arrogance problem. To this day, I still do. Like, I'm not gonna deny. And some of it, especially with my friends, I like to amplify it in the name of good fun because that's just the way to bond with me. The way to bond with me is to roast me. but there's like different tiers in my social life that you need to belong to for it to be effective. If you're a complete stranger, you don't have that right, you don't have that privilege, don't fucking try it. Because you're not going to get the results that you may observe other people get when they do that with me. Those other people earned that place. They probably were humiliated by me. They probably had to withstand me during a terrible time, but also I put in my work with them too. I had to be humiliated by them, on occasions risk being offended by them. But when I stopped being offended, that's when I realized that I really, really had grown. Now, some individuals may disagree with my humiliation aspect of work message that I'm trying to send here. And I can understand that. Some people might say that that feeling was created by the people in power to keep all of us impoverished, like feeling like we deserve to be treated that way because we need to be treated that way to become whatever, whatever. But those people who are in those positions of power more than likely didn't have to experience it to the extent that we did. It doesn't matter. That's the beauty of you starting off in a position where you are serving. Because let me tell you, those people are so detached that they wouldn't know how to serve. They don't know servant traits that make you a likable and respectable individual. However, if you go through the process of getting an entry level job, dealing with the worst of society, and you survive that for at least 5 years, trust me, you will come out a transformed person for the better if you know how to handle it, if you know how to recognize the lessons that may be hidden within that experience. But a lot of people I've been observing, especially the younger folks who escape from such a status in life, you will meditate, you will reflect back on that time of your life as the worst. I was young and it was terrible and I didn't have a lot of money and people were like this and that. I became happier the moment I escaped that world. And oh my God, if that's the way that you reflect, if you reflect on that time with disdain for that experience, you have missed out on the lesson. You ought to reflect back on that time and be like, you know what? People disrespected me. People called corporate on me. People tried to teach me how to do my own job when they've never had it. And people tried to school me on how to use my own payment terminal or something. Whatever the fuck you experience in server positions, customer service positions, customer service. Like, if you don't enjoy serving people, that is the one department you really want to avoid. But that's also the one department that if you have attitude issues, you ought to voluntarily go out of your way to be in and learn to control your fucking temper, because that's what I had to do. Although I was well mannered and all that stuff, something that I have always struggled with and I continue to struggle with is that urge that I get of wanting to absolutely decimate an individual who acts stupid. And that's why I have the channel and I turn it into my outlet for those situations. Like, this is the face that I put in front of you. It's normal, it's relaxed, it's calm, it's patient, it's soft spoken, it's humble and all that. But like, the real me is the pride that I show here on the channel, the real thoughts that I share here on the channel. And it's unfortunate that we live in a culture in which we need to just accept that and let it go, as opposed to, okay, I run into that situation, I run into that problem, but at least I can engage or attempt to engage in a productive manner with this person to make them aware that they are wrong. Because unfortunately, this is a culture that foments that kind of behavior of the customer is always right. That has consequences, and those are the consequences that we're seeing. This completely absurd and downright dangerous behavior that we're seeing from some consumers. But at the same time, there's also that element of, if you learn how to deal with that from your end, like you not getting offended, you not taking it personal, and you getting through that moment calmly, then I promise you that is a sign of maturity and growth. But if you leave this job after a couple of years and you still have those attitude problems, you have wasted your time. So, no amount of you getting a better job, getting a higher position, becoming a manager, or anything is going to make you feel successful and accomplished when, because of that attitude that you have had unchecked, that's going to appear in other places. It may appear in your relationships, in your life at home, with your coworkers. Maybe you're that manager that nobody likes, stuff like that. Why? You have not gone through the process of being humiliated. Work, especially entry level, is one of the places that I can say will humiliate you. And that humiliation may be a necessary component for you to develop as a person, and especially to develop your personality traits: perseverance, respect, patience, all of those things. But a lot of people just want to land into the good times from the get go. And you have to understand that everything has a process. So for those servers who don't get tipped and whatever, you continue to do your best job and be the model for everybody else and tell everybody else, look, do not take revenge on the individual who is not tipping, because we got to understand the position that we are in. We are here to literally serve. We need to get comfortable of the idea of serving and getting nothing in return. And an example that I could use from your personal life that may be relevant to you is, how do you feel when a parent asks you to get something done, especially when you're a kid? Like, if a parent tells you to mow the lawn, how do you react? Do you immediately jump into it with enthusiasm? Or are you like, what am I going to get in return? Does your parent have to be like, if you mow the lawn, I will cook your favorite thing, or take you out to do whatever, or buy you whatever, whatever, or pay you? Why not get comfortable with the idea of just doing the yard work and expecting nothing in return? So the adult version of humiliation should be work. Just do your job, not expecting anything. But what I mean by that is, of course, when you're on the clock, you legally need to be compensated for the labor that you're performing, right? But no matter where you're at, what kind of work you have, what kind of status you have, whether you're hourly or salaried or tipped, get comfortable with the idea of serving. And then I do believe that prosperity will follow you. Well, there you guys have it. That's it from me. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really hope that I was able to demonstrate what I mean, because it's difficult to do so in a culture that doesn't value that. We all look at it as, sure, big companies are terrible and satanic, and they make you feel all kinds of belittled and degraded and debased and all that shit. Like, nothing good comes out of them. But try to look at it more in a spiritual manner. Try to look at it beyond the surface. Yes, we are underpaid. Yes, we are overexploited. But the good thing about those things is, once you go through that process, once you have endured it, you will know, once you have endured it, you will know for a fact that hardships, hard times are survivable. And those are the times that shouldn't intimidate you. You should embrace them and get through them. And that way you can have a greater satisfaction and appreciation when the greater things come. That's all I'm saying.